Dallas attorney Jim Grau joins me this morning. The subject, frivolous lawsuits. I think that's what we hear all the time when people are talking, Jim, is I'm going to sue you, and we've read about them. And I know that when everybody thinks about a frivolous lawsuit, first thing that comes to mind is McDonald's.
Yeah, good morning. Absolutely. That has been identified as the poster child for frivolous litigation. And interestingly, we celebrated the 20th anniversary of that lawsuit in August of this year.
It's amazing how it's not that easy to sue somebody. I'm always amazed by it when I'm reading articles in the paper about somebody suing somebody, because you get into the realm of sometimes if you're just being treated, being mistreated, the first thing you want to do is sue somebody. But it's just not that easy to do.
Well, I might disagree with you just a little bit. And frankly, there really isn't a governor in place to stop any litigation. So if somebody wants to file a lawsuit in my jurisdiction, it's simply a matter of paying a filing fee and a service fee, and generally having an attorney, and then you can bring it on.
Yeah, I mean, is it your job though? Your job, Jim, is to find out what the proper wording is for the actual case to go through, right? The paperwork, because it's not like everyday people who haven't passed the bar like you wouldn't know what wording to use to sue under what category. I mean,
no, they wouldn't know. I mean, frivolous litigation has been identified as a claim or lawsuit that lacks legal merit. So what does that mean? It's one that has little or no chance of being won. It doesn't mean you have to win, but that's generally what we consider to be a frivolous lawsuit. But there are in place, especially in federal court, you've got to meet some requirements to get past the opening door. Otherwise, you could find yourself in trouble either as a claimant or as a plaintiff attorney.
Not only that, I mean, you go broke trying to get it done.
Yeah, I mean, the cost of litigation, frivolous or otherwise, as you know, as everybody reads, is just skyrocketing. It's just very difficult. So there's a price to pay, one way or the other.
Well, besides those attorneys out there that may be just trying to make a buck, and you're a reputable attorney, Jim Grau, Dallas attorney, do you advise your clients to say, hey, look, as much as I'd like to take this or something like that, you don't have a shot. So, disregard.
Certainly, absolutely. The old adage that I have used for a long time with my clients, sometimes, people will come in and they just want to sue because they're upset about something. And I tell them, if you want to stand on principle, you better have a lot of principle, because it's just going to cost. It's going to take time. But you've got to tell them, that's the lawyer's job up front, is to advise them that, look, I've looked at your facts, I look at the law, I apply it, and it doesn't work. It doesn't match up.
I think in real time, Jim, talking about something that is in real time, I'm sure you pay attention to all of the news, as I do, the whole situation with Bill Cosby. And we're sitting back as everyday people going, well, why didn't these people do something about it at the time? But what you could teach us is, I guess there is a statute of limitations. Is the reasoning for why we're not reading of any lawsuits right now?
Yeah, there are in place in most areas of the law and in every jurisdiction limitations upon which, if you don't bring your suit within that time period, you're restricted from doing it. There are some exceptions, especially in the area of sexual assault or sexual abuse, but even those are limited in many jurisdictions. So that's more than likely why we haven't seen that now.
All right. How about some tips for some individual? I mean, there are people out there that are just looking to sue. They'll go into a store, they'll fall on the floor or whatnot. Next thing you know, there's a lawsuit. And some of these tips to do, let's just say you do go into a place and you do slip and fall. A lot of these companies just want you to, sign off on this, sign off on that. I don't think you should do anything. I think if you're really seriously hurt, it has interrupted the way of your life, is you need to get an attorney.
Yeah, absolutely. You're correct. That's the first thing whenever I speak to people or I counsel clients. The first thing I tell them is immediately inform your lawyer, because there are deadlines that begin to run from the minute you are injured, or if you're a business person and someone is injured on your property, deadlines begin to run.
And these
companies.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry.
These companies, the people need to know these companies are protected and they have lawyers for these things. So they're already one step ahead of the game.
Absolutely, they are. Most businesses have risk managers in place or are familiar with what happens. What they'll do is they'll gather information they have under their control. They'll contact their insurance agent because most of them are insured. They're going to look at all of this from the beginning. So that's why it's important if you're the one that's hurt, you contact your lawyer as well, too.
Okay, now for businesses out there, and we're speaking with Jim Grau, who's a Dallas attorney, there are some things that they can do to put in some protection against some frivolous lawsuits.
Absolutely. The first thing is you got to be proactive. In my opinion, never let a lawsuit take you by surprise. In a business side, get everything in writing. Make sure it's detailed. And, let your lawyer see the agreement. Make sure that things like that you understand and that he understands that you're both on the legal same page. And I also tell people to insure themselves, separate themselves from their business, meaning, set up a business, an incorporated business or a limited liability partnership. And I think the most important thing, too, George, for these businesses is to make sure that, they're not penny wise and pound foolish. Spend a little bit of money on the front end to make sure that your business is in order, it's safe, that it meets customer needs. And that way, even if you are sued, at least you can come back and say, look, I had things in place to protect customers and take care of the business. Certainly makes you look a lot better in front of a jury a year or two later.
I think today's day and age, a lot of us consumers, we're inconvenienced by the way businesses do things because of the frivolous lawsuit that's cost a company money. And as you said earlier, they should always expect to be sued. That's how I see it. If I'm opening a business today, you know what? Someone's going to try to sue me, and I need to do everything I can do to protect myself. Unfortunately, that inconveniences a lot of the rest of us.
It really does. And, you go back to, and I have looked at this, and if you go back 20 years ago to the McDonald's lawsuit, which really draws a lot of attention. Think about everything that's happened since that lawsuit. The legal aftermath has been huge. That started tort reform. That started the billboards of, spill hot coffee, win millions, play lawsuit lotto. That's what it was. And so it all stemmed from that. So we have all of these tort reforms in place, and I don't think what people realize, too, we have seen just a boom in arbitration. So every time you and I go and sign up for AT&T or American Express card, somewhere in page 15 in very fine print is the requirement that you and I are going to waive our right to a jury trial, and we're going to go to arbitration.
See that? See that? Like I said earlier, they're all set up. They're prepared for this. The consumer just wants to go in, get something done. There's a lot of us from old school will slip, fall, get up, wipe it off, and say, it's okay, I understand. But there are people out there just looking for this type of stuff, and they have to understand that the company's one step ahead of you, and they know this is going to happen. And unfortunately, as I said earlier, businesses that are truly concerned about this, maybe liability. Liability insurance covers a lot of that, right?
Yeah, it definitely does. And that's why I always tell people, make sure businesses, individuals, contact your insurance agent. Don't assume that it's not covered. Insurance companies will routinely protect you from that. Insurance companies will routinely pay for your defense if you're sued. So that's another reason why that's important.
That's some business that you're in, I'll tell you. And boy, it's just changed so much in the last 10, 15 years. That this is all we're reading about today. And again, everybody thinks that they can sue anybody for any reason. What about the everyday person? Is there anything that they can do to protect themselves, or we just deal with it as it comes?
Well, if you're on the same suggestions that I've made for businesses on an individual, a homeowner, I think those are all still the same. As an individual, the regular Joe, you're not going to go out and there's no basis to incorporate yourself, but you can protect yourself, by just being vigilant, being proactive in what you do. Make sure that you're still always insured, homeowners insurance. It's amazing the things that we have seen over the years where homeowners carriers will protect individuals for not just a injury on a property, but sometimes for assault, sometimes even for intentional torts. So, that's a great way to give yourself some protection individually.
Jim Grau, Dallas attorney. Last question. Can McDonald's or would that situation, can that happen again today? I mean, there isn't too many things that they don't give warnings on over there today. Caution, coffee's extremely hot, can cause scalding. I mean, you got a whole paragraph on its cup today. Could this type of lawsuit happen again?
Yeah, it can. And what people don't realize, that took on a whole life of its own. Most of the people, and I was included in that until I did some research on it, got the story wrong. And so what really happened in that instance was, it was, coffee was served at about 190 degrees that day. She was burned on about 6% of her body, and 90% of those burns were third-degree burns. She wasn't driving, as most people think. And as a consequence of that, and what people don't know, too, is that McDonald's had received 700 complaints corporately about burns from hot coffee before that. So now they place a warning on it, and that gives them some protection. But I will say this. After that, you asked me if this could happen again. After that, there were several other lawsuits that came about, one here in the United States and one in England. And in both instances, the coffee company won.
Good stuff. It's been a pleasure chatting with you, my friend. Thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, it was my pleasure. Thanks very much.
Okay. Jim Grau, Dallas attorney.